The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Chapter 1. Tom and his Aunt Polly. Tom Sawyer was a young boy who lived in a small town near the Mississippi River. He was full of energy and always looking for adventure. Tom lived with his Aunt Polly, his half-brother Sid, and his cousin Mary. Aunt Polly was a kind but strict woman who tried to keep Tom out of trouble. She loved him deeply, but often found it difficult to control his mischievous nature. One morning, Aunt Polly called out, "Tom, where are you?" She looked around the house, checking behind doors and under furniture. Tom had a habit of avoiding work, and she knew he was probably hiding somewhere. Sure enough, she found him behind a barrel in the backyard. "Tom Sawyer!" she exclaimed. "I knew you were up to something. You were trying to avoid your chores again, weren't you?" Tom gave her a big, innocent smile. "No, Aunt Polly, I was just resting." Aunt Polly sighed. "You are too smart for your own good. Well, since you have so much free time, I have a job for you. Tomorrow you will paint the fence." Tom groaned. "But Aunt Polly—" "No arguments, young man. If you want to live under my roof, you must follow my rules." Tom frowned, but knew there was no way to escape. He would have to do as she said. That night, as Tom lay in bed, he thought of a way to avoid the boring task. "There must be a trick to this," he whispered to himself. "I'll find a way to turn work into fun." Chapter 2. The Whitewashing Trick. The next day, Aunt Polly handed Tom a bucket of white paint and a brush. "You will paint this entire fence before you can play," she said firmly. The fence was long and tall. It would take him hours to finish. Tom picked up the brush and painted a small section. He sighed. This was going to be the worst day ever. Then he had an idea. When his friend Ben Rogers walked by, Tom pretended to enjoy himself. He whistled and stepped back to admire his work, tilting his head like a great artist. "Tom, what are you doing?" Ben asked. "Oh, this?" Tom said casually. "This is not work. This is an art. Only the best painters can do it." Ben looked interested. "Really? It looks like fun. Can I try?" Tom hesitated, pretending to think. "I don't know. This job is very special. Please, I'll give you my apple." Tom pretended to think again and then sighed. "All right, but only because I trust you." Ben eagerly grabbed the brush and started painting. Soon, other boys passed by. They also wanted a turn. One boy gave Tom a toy soldier, another gave him a marble. By the time the fence was finished, Tom had collected a pile of small treasures, and he had barely done any work himself. As Aunt Polly walked by and saw the perfectly painted fence, she nodded approvingly. "Well, I suppose you deserve a break, Tom," she said. Tom grinned. Maybe I should work more often, he thought, but of course only if someone else did the actual work. Chapter 3. Tom meets Becky Thatcher. On Monday, Tom went to school as usual, but he had something else on his mind. A new family had moved into town, and they had a daughter named Becky Thatcher. She had golden curls and bright blue eyes. Tom thought she was the prettiest girl he had ever seen. At lunchtime, Tom saw Becky sitting alone under a tree. He walked up to her. "Hello," he said, trying to sound confident. "Hello," Becky replied shyly. "Do you like stories?" Tom asked. "Yes," Becky said excitedly. "Do you know any?" Tom grinned. "I know lots of stories. Do you want to hear one?" Becky nodded, and Tom began to tell her a story about pirates and hidden treasure. Becky listened carefully, her eyes wide with excitement. When Tom finished, she clapped her hands. "That was wonderful," she said. "Tell me another." Tom felt proud. "Do you want to be engaged?" he asked suddenly. Becky looked confused. "Engaged? What does that mean?" "It means we promise to love each other forever." Becky smiled. "Okay." Tom was overjoyed. But then, he made a mistake. He accidentally mentioned that he had been engaged before to another girl. Becky was furious. "You don't really love me!" she cried and ran away. Tom sighed. He had messed up, and now Becky was angry with him. He spent the rest of the school day trying to get her attention, but she ignored him completely. At recess, Tom tried to impress her by walking on a high fence. "Becky, look at me," he called. But at that moment, he lost his balance and fell straight into a pig trough. The whole class laughed, and even Becky giggled. Tom, covered in mud, sighed. "Maybe love is harder than I thought." Chapter 4. A Midnight Adventure. That night, Tom could not sleep. He kept thinking about Becky. To distract himself, he sneaked out of his house and met his best friend, Huckleberry Finn. Huck was the son of the town drunk and lived a wild, free life. Every boy in town admired him. "Let's go on an adventure," Huck suggested. Tom's eyes lit up. "Where?" "The graveyard." Tom hesitated. "Why the graveyard?" "Because that's where ghosts come out at night," Huck said. Tom was both excited and scared. Together, they walked to the graveyard under the moonlight. When they arrived, they hid behind a large tombstone. Everything was quiet until they saw 3 figures walking toward a freshly dug grave. It was Dr. Robinson, Muff Potter, and Injun Joe. The 3 men were digging up a dead body. Tom and Huck watched in horror. Suddenly, Injun Joe got into an argument with Dr. Robinson. Before they could react, Injun Joe pulled out a knife and stabbed Dr. Robinson. Muff Potter, who was drunk, fell to the ground, confused. Injun Joe turned to him and said, "You killed him!" Tom and Huck ran as fast as they could. When they reached safety, they swore an oath. "We can never tell anyone what we saw," Tom said. "If Injun Joe finds out, he will kill us." "I swear," Huck agreed. The 2 boys were terrified but kept their secret. That night, Tom dreamt of Injun Joe's evil face. He woke up in a cold sweat. "I hope he never finds out we were there," he whispered. Chapter 5. The Trial of Muff Potter. The morning after witnessing the murder, Tom felt uneasy. Every time he walked through town, he feared running into Injun Joe. His mind was filled with nightmares of the graveyard, the knife, and Dr. Robinson's lifeless body. Days passed, and the town was buzzing with news. Muff Potter had been arrested for murder. Everyone believed he was guilty because they found him near the grave, drunk and confused. The real killer, Injun Joe, had spread the lie that Muff had committed the crime. At night, Tom tossed and turned in his bed. He couldn't stand the thought of an innocent man going to jail, or worse. Finally, he made a brave decision. During the trial, the entire town gathered at the courthouse. Muff Potter sat in chains, looking sad and helpless. Injun Joe sat across the room, calm and confident. When the judge asked for witnesses, Tom slowly stood up. The room fell silent. Tom's heart pounded as he pointed at Injun Joe. "I saw everything! It wasn't Muff Potter. It was Injun Joe who killed Dr. Robinson." Gasps filled the courtroom. Injun Joe's face turned pale. He jumped up, pushed past the crowd, and ran out the window before anyone could stop him. Muff Potter was freed, and Tom became a hero. But deep inside, Tom was afraid. Injun Joe had escaped, and he knew Tom had exposed him. Revenge was coming. Chapter 6. The Search for Treasure. To take his mind off Injun Joe, Tom and Huck decided to hunt for treasure. "Pirates always hide gold under dead trees," Tom said, "or inside old houses." So one evening, they went to a rundown abandoned house on the edge of town. They crept inside carefully. The wooden floor creaked under their feet, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. Suddenly, they heard voices. Someone else was in the house. They quickly hid behind an old wooden door and peeked through a crack. It was Injun Joe, and he was with another man. They had a heavy box, and when they opened it, Tom and Huck's eyes widened. Gold. Stacks of gold coins glittered in the dim light. "We'll hide it in the cave," Injun Joe said. "No one will ever find it there." Tom and Huck barely breathed as the men picked up the box and left. "The cave," Tom whispered. "That's where we'll find the treasure." Chapter 7. Lost in the Cave. A few days later, Tom and Becky joined a school picnic. After eating and playing games, Tom led Becky toward McDougal's cave, the same cave where Injun Joe had hidden the treasure. "Let's explore," Tom said excitedly. At first, they walked through the large entrance, laughing and enjoying the adventure. But as they ventured deeper, the paths became dark and twisting. They turned left, then right, then left again. Then Becky stopped. "Tom, I think we're lost." Tom's excitement faded. He looked around. The walls all looked the same. There was no way to tell which direction led back to the entrance. And then, it got worse. As Tom turned a corner, he saw a shadow moving. At first, he thought it was another explorer, but then his heart stopped. It was Injun Joe. Tom quickly pulled Becky behind a rock and whispered, "It's him!" The murderer. They held their breath as Injun Joe passed by, holding a lantern and a sack. He was looking for something. When he disappeared into another tunnel, Tom grabbed Becky's hand. "We have to get out of here." They walked and walked, but every turn led to more darkness. They were completely lost. Becky started to cry. They had no food, no water, and no light. Chapter 8. The Great Escape. For what felt like hours, Tom and Becky wandered through the cave. Becky was exhausted. She sat down and whispered, "I can't walk anymore, Tom." Tom knew he had to be brave. "I'll find the way out," he said. He left Becky in a safe spot and started searching. He marked the walls with soot from his candle so he wouldn't get lost. Then, in the distance, he saw a tiny speck of light. He ran toward it and found a small opening. Sunlight streamed through. They were saved. Tom hurried back to Becky. "I found the way out. Come on!" With renewed energy, Becky followed Tom through the tunnel. They pushed through the opening and fell onto the ground outside. Fresh air filled their lungs. They were free. Back in town, Tom told the townspeople about Injun Joe in the cave. Immediately, the adults sealed the entrance with a heavy door. Days later, when they opened it again, they found Injun Joe's body. He had been trapped inside. The nightmare was finally over. Chapter 9. The Hidden Treasure. But Tom still remembered something. The treasure. He and Huck returned to the cave. Since Injun Joe was gone, they were free to search. They followed the same path Joe had taken before, deep into the tunnels. Then they spotted a large rock. It looked like it had been moved recently. Tom and Huck pushed the rock aside and gasped. There it was, the box of gold coins. They stared at the huge piles of money. "We're rich, Huck," Tom shouted. They carried the treasure back to town. The news spread quickly. The boys had found a real fortune. The judge offered to take care of Huck, but Huck wasn't sure he wanted to live in a house. "I don't like rules," he admitted. Tom convinced him. "You can still have adventures, Huck, but now you can have a bed too." Huck thought about it and finally agreed. He decided to try a new life. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer is not just the story of a mischievous boy, but a journey of growing up, with courage, sincerity, and meaningful lessons about life. Through Mark Twain's inspiring storytelling, childhood comes alive, innocent, wild, and unforgettable. This story reminds us that we were all once children, dreaming big, making mistakes, and learning to grow through the adventures that shaped who we are today.